Chongwe, and I'm a project officer at Pipoz Action for Accountability and Good Governance in Zambia, PAAGZ. PAAGZ is a non-governmental organization that deals in governance and accountability processes. We have activities across the country in all the 10 provinces, and so recently we have been working on a project with support from the National Endowment for Democracy in Need, and this project is called the Ticheze Zambia project. It's being conducted in 3 different provinces, 4 provinces actually. That's Lusaka, Copperbelt, Luapula, and Western provinces. So the project aims at promoting government accountability and amplifying citizen voices. So under this project, there are a number of activities, and these include proposed parliament sessions, capacity building trainings, radio shows, as well as what we call Ticheze group meetings of women and youths.
First and foremost, I want to take recognition of the rep for the mayor for the seat of Chongwe, the host councillor for Chongwe Central, the ED for PAAGZ Zambia, and the team, the mayor, the councillors present here, the good people of Chongwe. The district commissioner for Chongwe would have loved to be here. Unfortunately, he has been invited for the other equally important function in Chongwe. So he had asked me to stand in for him. And I pray that by the end of the meeting, I'll represent him well. I think from what the ED have talked about, it is true PAAGZ has brought us a platform in Chongwe. You may wish to know that Zambia has 10 provinces. Zambia has 116 districts, and today they are in Chongwe. What they want to do is they want to bring out governance issues within the people of Chongwe. And they want to give us an opportunity on how we can also interact with our leaders in all sections of leadership in Chongwe, either central government, the DC office, the local authority, the councillors, ward development committees, and CDF committees, to see how do we want to see Chongwe in the next 5 years and the years to come.
The first set of activities under this project was conducted in Chongwe constituency of Lusaka province, and that was done between June and July. We conducted the first People's Parliament session, and its focus was on the challenges that citizens are faced with, citizens of Chongwe constituency, in accessing the constituency development fund. And after the submissions were made during the People's Parliament session, the submissions actually we gathered from there were used to do a capacity building training for the civic leaders as well as the citizens. And so most of the issues that were arising during the People's Parliament session, the major issue was an information gap. So there was not much information that was being passed around to the citizens, especially those in rural constituencies, in line with the constituency development guidelines, how they could access the constituency development funds, and how they could form cooperatives. So there was a lot of misinformation and lack of information.
Nachuka kuchalimbana what vame vifunika vame naona mostly kuja women lack capital vambili wafuna kushitako ma businesses but in rama kwebanga icho sekulibi, and most of the people this side they depend on vashita depend pali farming, and mwezi wakulima kwa tutilima once muye. So ndrama ikulu waipeza chabeka mozi muye, that is if valima vachita harvest wagulisa. So if there can be alternatives yakti wapasa koma capital as my, that can be a good thing. Then Chinangu, we don't have a market muchadimbana ward. Sinizi wa mwamne wanga tandi zileko, and since we are talking about CDF, since Muzashtapona explain more, I'm sure this will help the women in terms of capital. The other thing ni kusegula accounts. Kuli bantu afuna osegula accounts, but process yoseguliramo account iliko difficult. And so each turn off bantu kwenda ku bank process ya neja bring an application chan and gatibonga langa nilepo muli area. This can be a good thing. And some women wants to start some project, but they lack support and they lack funding. So these things, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Nasakala. I'm from National Scientific Research and Tandavale Ward. My concern yanga ni Kenya WDC. Wa WDC, I don't know about others, but wa WDC wametili nabo ku ward kwatu. Wachedwa kushita disseminate information kuli bantu. So as a result, bantu batu sibaziba bamene bichitika. And then na information yamene bama pasa sometimes imankhala isali consistent. So tindie challenge number 1. Then challenge number 2, accessing yama cooperative, more forming yama cooperative. Boma sinaipange easy. So for Monga, for example, it took us 6 months kutititenge certificate. So certification is a problem. Accessing information is a problem. So and then my process we had to ask my ladies kuti bachite contribute kandalama. So kamene kaja kandalama kaona nachita contribute my ladies. Now we are being held at ransom kuti ndalama tinakupasani but kube venti uona. Because yamene time yo chedo process ya registration. Then manje were being told no, the money is not. So when you go back to ground, kwamba kwa try explain was my chivuta because what to understand kuti process ni itali, then it doesn't mean kuti automatically ndrama mzankhana nayo. So bantu bafunika maybe bapunzisiwe much more on how to access these monies.
Zina langa ndine Mkangasa Andy, nichokera mu Chongwe Central Ward, also representing Voice of the Youth. I've got a number of challenges that we are faced with as youths, but I'm only going to concentrate on 3 or 4. The first challenge or the first problem that we are faced with, kulingana na kuona kwanga ni cha number 1 ni there is a communication breakdown, number 1, in terms of the information flow between the government and the youths. What do I mean? We are talking of CDF. First and foremost, I would love to acknowledge the fact that the CDF was increased and we are yet to see more that is going to benefit the general public, the youths, the women, and everyone else. So, by information, I mean kulima problems, there's a gap, bridge yamene ili pakati pa boma na abantu o boma na mayouths. Lero nikafuna kuti nifunse kuti muno mayouths tili muno wali na youth police o wana iberengapo ni wangati chamba wanza peze kati ulibe. Okay, so CDF, according na government, my implementations yaka or my guidelines ya CDF ni ya mushe maningi alionse muntu angachite benefit. Kwa machamine chivuta ni information dissemination. Kuti waziwe wantu kuti CDF ndrama zinabwe apa so tivera ati ndrama zili kwaini. But CDF, according to the guidelines, ilipata kuliba bursaries walipira wana school. Then kulinawa ma businesses, you form cooperatives, then you access those monies. Then kulina ya development, wakambapo wazimai marketi ifunika ikule, vipatala vifunika vikule, vifunika vipake. Okay? So we are yet to see how those monies are going to be facilitated so that people can access. Okay, Wama Bazet is, of course, we acknowledge the fact that Vajaveve Zinange 9 wanaenda kuma schools. Okay? manje wama businesses wamami wakambapo kudala kuti this time around kuti forming a cooperative ichitenga nthawi itali boma singatandizire kuti vantu abapunzise cooperative tiforming so business plan tiforming so tilemba so kuti uchite access ndrama ufunika ulina proposal ufuna kusunga nkumba ufuna kuzisunga bwanji uzasunga zingati feed uzambogula zingati vonsevo kulibe ngati kuliko amene anauzi wako kuchoka kuboma iyo information aimye kwanja muno kuti ine vananipunzisako so mosungira nsomba mosungira nkumba so information pakati pa boma na mayouths palibe chamene chifunika funding ifunika izikula especially ku Ministry of Youth and Sports. That's my suggestion, number one. Number two, we need to formulate a youth council or a youth board that is going to be in between the youths and the government. If anything, ngati yo board yankalira ku Ntandawale ward, tikaenda ku Ntandawale ward kuja isema youths benango tiendo uza ma youths banzatu kuja tiuzireni kuboma vamene tifuna iseba ku Chongwe ni vaso. Ngati yo youth council ya forming iwa ili pano pa Chongwe Central Ward, benango ma youths baku kumanyika bazabwera bazakamba ati tifuna mtikambire so. Of course CDF will through the Ministry of Local Government ku council kuja. But kuja ku council kuja ma officers wali na ma job descriptions yo siana. Sunga choke kuja kukatoa waenda ku council kufunsa pa CDF kabiri katatu. Ndrama uzacho support. Information number one. Number two, we lack employment opportunities. For a long time that I've been in Chongwe, I think in Chito kuma youths kweve nizovutako why chifukwa tilibema industries.
Announcing that they are right at Chiota Skills Training Center training, and others also who were picked on secondary school bursaries. On that note, please, we are very, very humbled and thank you so very much for that. I think mostly the challenge that is being faced by the youths, it is just one that has been mentioned, which I would not want to get back to. I think unnecessary procedures, in order for us to access this CDF is what has caused most of the youths not to access it. And therefore the request would be that if this act, the CDF Act, could be revised, I'm sure many people could have had access.
With these submissions that we had, we conducted a capacity building training, focusing on bridging the gaps that were identified. And so this was also conducted in Chongwe constituency with some citizens from the various wards, members of the ward development committees and the CDF committees, the ward councillors, as well as general citizens. And one of the major gaps that was identified was lack of information. So the citizens submitted that there was no much information that was given to them on how they could access the constituency development funds, what was required of them to form cooperatives, and how exactly to go about the process. And others did complain about how long the procedure was. And there was also an issue with the language because most of the forms that they need to use are in English. And so they asked that if it could be translated into a local language. And also, because when applying for the Constituency Development Fund, whether it's a grant or a loan, there's need for them to write an application and submit a business proposal. And so it was identified that most of the citizens, especially for those women and youths from the rural areas, did not know how to write business proposals. And so that's what the capacity building training that we had was focused on. And we conducted this capacity building training with technical support from the constituency development offices in Chongwe. So we had some people from the constituency offices who came in and facilitated some sessions alongside members of our team.
Previously, CDF, before the guidelines were revised, people would bring applications straight to the office of the Member of Parliament or at DC or even at the council. Now that the guidelines have been revised, the only people that can recommend a project for development is your ward development committee. Pipoz, are we together? Even submissions that should be made to the Member of Parliament should come from your ward development committee. And how do these ward development committees get that information? They are mandated by the WDC Act to have community meetings, zones. Are we together? If you're currently not having those community meetings, you need to be able to hold them to task.
And the radio shows also were focused on sustainability of the conversations around CDF and the challenges that the people of Chongwe are faced with. So we had it on Chongwe community radio show, community radio station, and the participants were the people that we trained during the capacity building training and those that were present during the Pipoz Parliament session. The Ticheze Zambia meetings they were formed, and for them it's a sustainability kind of sustainability groups. So the objective of the Ticheze Zambia group is for them to continue demanding for social accountability, for them to continue having conversations around public resource management and effective public service delivery. So it's like sustainability of the conversations, even as the project moves to the other provinces and constituencies. But the conversation around public resources still continue.
The CDF guidelines, ningakambe kuti yali bwino but kuliko delay. Ndiye panapezeka dandaulo yaikulu mu chomwe tili nayo iyi. Paliko delay pezeka kuti tikasiriza kukanso kuti tasiriza process yonse sona kuti vintu vichitika. Ndiye pali mavuto chifukwa tinzombera anthu ambiri nzokamba kuti ndrama zinangena pati sitiziona. So ngati kungakhale kufulumiza tikasiriza pa CDF committee vikaenda kusogolo kuliwa minister kuja wachita approve mwamusanga so pakuti vantu waziona kuti vintu vifendera.
Napunza vintu vambili. One, napunza kupali CDF nezoziva kuti CDF ni chinyama bwanjiro sumina yachani. Izona kwa chabeni zina chabia CDF chasela bate. Pamina punza pa CDF ni government bati pasan drama zakwa bati tingayuzini.
Okay, my name is Mary Nkoma. I'm from Chongwe Central Ward under Chongwe constituency. I'm a citizen from Chongwe, and I would like to appreciate the PAAGZ GZ for the good opportunity they have given us today to interact with our civic leaders, which was more like a dialogue meeting. Under this meeting, we had the privilege to discuss on challenges that we have to access the funds. And these CDF funds, we have learned today that there are guidelines in which one needs to follow in order to apply the CDF funds. Number one, you must be in a cooperative or in a club or even individuals. You can access the CDF funds. And we're also advised that before you access this CDF funds, you must have a project. You must have a budgeted project which is in line with the constituency development. For example, you need to identify what projects are there in your community that you need to come up with and what is the benefit of those projects.
The workshop was okay, and we are very happy that such an organization which are coming into our ward with that information which is very fruitful to the community. We have learned a lot in terms of the guidelines of CDF, how the community is able to access this money and how to come up with the projects to have that money. And also we have also heard on how the CDF is working, starting from the community project, the bursaries, and also skill development. That is a good idea from the government, and also thank the PAAGZ for this initiative that they have brought to the people of Chongwe. I think it must also be taken to the rural wards where they need this information. It should not only be at Chongwe Central, but we pray that next time you go into all the wards, because that's where people, they don't have more information about the CDF.
And so we, after the People's Parliament, we drafted up recommendations with support from the local NGOs that were present during the sessions. We worked with World Vision and the Child Fund, all based in Chongwe. And these we drafted up submissions and recommendations that were submitted to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development for consideration. But we also did submit these submissions to the area Member of Parliament, the Mayor, and the councillors that were also present during the People's Parliament session. We are currently going to be moving to a different province with this project, and that will be the Kupabel province. We hope that the ministry is going to work towards improving the accessibility of the constituency development funds for the people of Chongwe constituency.